Two boys watching the stream dashboard. Okay, mod, tell me if this functions, if we don't have any technical difficulties, so I can immerse myself into the personality of a host. Just 1 second. Hey, mod. Mod.
It is not working.
Mod is not working. Yes, I will take yes as intended, and I will take this just because easier. So welcome everyone. Welcome to our second stream. This one was really unplanned. That's why you just see there is an upcoming stream and it just happened. But we sat down to film a video about RedMark. This is my friend Lazar. He is the co-designer of the game. And yeah, we sat down to film a video. Turns out it's gonna be a stream. So welcome. I hope you're gonna have fun watching us just talk about our obsession that is RedMark in the last 4 months?
Oh damn!
Yeah, 4 months. Like that. I think we started brainstorming and working on this in Egypt. They closed the sea. That was the whole thing. We couldn't go and scuba dive, so we were stuck inside. And we had some ideas about like making a game. So yeah, we started brainstorming, drinking a lot and brainstorming. And after we came back, I think January was the first month that we really worked on this. Now we have well, let's say that 40% of the whole book is finished. We do have a designer. We are working with an editor. So it's really coming along. And you might ask, what is RedMark? And I sound like a broken record when I talk about it. But RedMark is a modern horror TTRPG that is... the popular term is narrative first or narrative forward, but I don't want to say it is, because if we look at Call of Cthulhu on the one side and Cult on the other, where Call of Cthulhu is really crunchy and Cult is more like the narrative first thing powered by the apocalypse system, we wanted to be in the middle, in between. So we were always asking the question, how can you still be tactical? How can you still feel like the system is simulating or translating what you want to do into your character and into the game, but still doesn't stand as like in between you and the narrative. We wanted to streamline the skills, streamline every system. We wanted to try something that hasn't been tried before, or it might be tried before, but it's something that we haven't seen up until now. So yeah, skills and aspects are the core of the system, and I think if you want to know more about how those function, we have a couple of videos on the channel. So I think we can go over it really fast, but we don't have to. I don't know. What do you prefer?
I mean, we can mention it. Like they're definitely the core of the system, and we started, the game with it mostly. Like those are the main changes we did to previous games. Like we used to modify games systems we already used and played, and then we just have to admit that just trying to modify something means that
We should be live again. No idea what just happened. There we go. Technical difficulties. Well, we're just noobs at this, so it's expected. I hope you don't hear static anymore. That's what I tried to. You were saying.
Yeah, so I mean, we started making the game when we admitted to ourselves that we are constantly modifying the system that we use, and just the fact that we have that need to change something that we still do like and enjoy, um, you know, means that we need something new, and we started like changing parts more and more, and then as you change one thing, you say, okay, but now this requires also some improvements, and at the end we we did something completely new, even to us. Like the first idea, I think when we started making the game, I don't think we had any plans for the rest of other parts of the system. Like most of it, I think we just wanted to inherit from another game we liked, and at the end we kind of changed pretty much everything.
Yeah. So we started with, okay, we're gonna make a stripped down Cthulhu clone, more or less. and slowly we started to like remove things or change features. That's where we inherited the sanity mechanic, for example, and then slowly it became composure, and now it's functioning really completely differently. When it comes to skills, you know how in Call of Cthulhu you have a bunch of skills, like a list of skills, and you're proficient in each of them. Our game is also a D100 roll under system, so that part translates well. But we didn't want to have a huge list, so we ended up having 6 skills that answer the question, what are you doing? So we have force, move, shape, adapt, control, and sense. And three of the first 3 are physical skills. The second 3 are mental skills. And then you have the context in which this is you're using your skills that gives you a certain boost, and those are called aspects. And aspects are, well, industry, nature, science, spirituality, um,
Industry,
nature, science, spirituality, social, and void. Yeah. So if you want to, for example, cook something, you would roll shape nature, for example, because you're shaping organic material. Or if you're doing like how do you say a surgery, right? As a doctor, you might do shape nature science because you're doing some scientific stuff. You're reconnecting the wires of a human being inside of them. So that's the premise, right? Other than that, you roll your skill. You can or you don't have to use your aspects, and if you're under your skill value, you succeeded. That's the whole premise of skills. And I think we wanted to attach everything else to this core so that it's very intuitive to know how everything works. You always go back to these 6 skills. They're the DNA of the system in a way. But how we got inspired for this, actually, we saw the domains in Heart, the city beneath. And the domains there, I think their skills and domains are something similar to what we had in mind. But I didn't really resonate with those. We tried hard, we played a session. It was really cool, don't get me wrong, I really like Heart. But something with those domains didn't work for us. They were very specific, like environment specific.
We like the whole idea for us was to like define like any action that a player could do with a combination of skill and up to 2 aspects. So when we say like skills, say what are you doing, and then aspects should answer the question like how you are doing that thing. And domains in Heart were like a little bit too abstract. Yeah.
For example, there was a word, and the words, like, I don't think those uh, the words that they chose to represent domains are very hard for someone who is not native in English. So there is like a word that describes narrow spaces, and like those, like, I don't know, if you're in a vent or if you're in a small cave. There's a word for that. I don't know. Maybe it's somewhere on the shelf. But yeah, that doesn't communicate to me
and
an aspect.
Not just that, but like we also wanted skills and aspects to be like he said, DNA of a character as well. And then when you're building character, you're thinking about numbers that you're gonna assign to those skills and aspects. And then when you look at those numbers, you already have like a idea of how that character functions and behaves. And in those cases, like I cannot imagine a one person that's really proficient in narrow spaces. Like why? And like it's
I mean, you can have the same argument for our skills and aspects where you say, okay, but someone who is good in like, I don't know, nature can have a boost from just surviving in nature all the way to cooking and modifying someone's bodies, right? It's like, are you proficient? Is it in Heart? We had the problem of it being too narrow, of like having
and we are a
narrow
little bit too
application,
wide.
and we're too wide. But I think it is fine because your skill, in a way, still diversifies characters enough, but you can specialize in something that is not. And if they have to fix, like, I don't know, something that's mechanical, they would find some things that are maybe similar, like joints in arms and legs, maybe similar to some like cogs and gears. I don't know. It was good enough, diverse enough for us to go with it.
And not just that, we started from like narrative point of view, like that the narrative was main thing, for us. Like we wanted to make the system that's going to be very narrative forward, narrative friendly, whatever. But this also like how to say, like excludes all the misuses of our system, because it is wide, and if you go into like metagaming, there should be problems. But we started with the premise that you're going to define your action first and say, I am doing this way, and then we just we just transcribe that into skills and aspect, not the vice versa. You're not trying to say like, I'm shaping and then using nature and maybe science, and then we see what that means. We're going different way. You say what you're doing, and then we can easily define that. So it always needs to have like narrative sense, and in that case, like, you know having a wide system in this way, it doesn't seem as a problem so far. We will see.
Yeah. I think the biggest benefit of this is that more people started playing this type of system because you can pitch 6 skills and aspects to anyone. And I really had no problems getting people that never played TTRPGs into it. Well, for us personally, like I love crunchy games. I see Mark who is in the chat. He's the one who is responsible for me getting into this hobby and for all this chaos. So he introduced the hobby to me as from like Pathfinder 1. And if you know anything about Pathfinder 1, you know that it's a very crunchy system, very customizable, very interesting. And I do have an itch still to go back to that system and play it. Pathfinder 2 or 2.5 is also amazing, and you have like more actions in combat, and all that is very cool. But for this modern horror approach, for example, or anything that is a bit I don't know, uh, darker, maybe grimdark stuff would also work in
Yes.
the campaign we're trying to run right now. This Sunday is the first session, will be of like a grimdark type of setting. So it still works in those systems, but it's more on the side of narrative because, well, everybody has 10 HP. So if a gun deals, I don't know, 1d6 to 1d8 damage, you can see how everything else becomes more important than just shooting. Um, so yeah, we are not opposed to crunchy games, and I think we do have like our combat is pretty crunchy in a way when you take into account all the boosts and everything that you can do to like refresh your roll. In that sense, there is arithmetic, but we wanted everything else to be very light. So yeah, that's the like a okay intro of how we did skills and aspects, but we touched upon combat, and I think the focus here should be what we're trying to achieve with combat, how we got to the point where we are now.
Because when we started, I don't think we really considered changing combat that much. Like that was a part we didn't really plan on touching at all. And now I think it's maybe like the part that's like most revolutionary, like different from what we.
Well, yeah, we started actually changing initiative first. I think in even when we were playing Pathfinder and those games, we started trying out those initiative systems that are popular online. For example, one side plays first and then another side plays after, and you just roll to see who is playing first, like the GM or the players, and then the players make a deal. And we had like a sand, what is it called? Sand clock.
Hourglass?
Hourglass, yeah, sand clock.
That's fine.
So we had an hourglass, so players can make a plan over like a minute and a half, and then you just execute that plan. We also tried different approaches, like for example, phases from Crown and Skull. That is something that we actually considered a part of the game when we first started.
We started with that, yeah.
Sup, nerds? Well, hello, Rich. Oh, Scotland is sunny. Well, I can tell you, you brought sun to Serbia as well because it was almost about to rain until 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, see?
Kind of
changing weather. If Scotland is sunny, Belgrade must be sunny too, right?
That's probably the reason why you yellow, it's because of the sun that we didn't expect.
Why I'm yellow, like from this line. And the yellow light bulb is off, so I don't know.
I mean, in the style of the game, I would say just void.
Just void, yeah, probably. Because the more I talk about RedMark, the more yellow I am. That's how it goes. Oh,
I'm fine. I'm still fine.
yeah. This is the cover for RedMark, and it's awesome. So we have this sample book that I always show because we needed it for the Get Barbaric video.
Actually, we had a better book for.
No, yeah, we had a better book, but this is the same sticker, right? So yeah, we will put that there. Advertisement. There you go. So yeah, we tried a bunch of different initiative systems, and I think phases in Crown and Skull are pretty cool because I don't know if if you're familiar with this, but in Crown and Skull, every character sheet has like 5 little like squares on the character sheet, number 1 to 5, and when you're outside of combat, you would like choose on which phase you play, and then the GM would have the same parameter for the enemies. And of course, some enemies could play on multiple phases. That's how you adjust difficulty, for example. And the GM would just go, okay, phase 1, everyone that is in phase 1 plays. The players always have the act first if they're in the same phase as the monsters. Then you have like the GM say second phase, third phase, fourth, fifth, and then wrap around, and that is around. So yeah, phases were cool, but we found problems with phases with balance because you don't have. It's not very reaction driven. If something happens to you on phase 3, it is very hard for you to get your act together until like phase 2 again, which you can argue is the same problem you would have with normal initiative. But I think other games that use like classic D&D initiative have some sort of reactions. There are attacks of opportunity, there are bonus actions, reactions. Even Pathfinder now has reactions that you can do. So I think there is still a way for you to do things. In phases, they're very strict, and we thought about adding like some reactions, or we also thought about like, could you switch your phase in the middle of the game, and what would that cost? Overall, we tried playing with that and didn't really work.
I mean, to be honest, like it was still initiative. Like it is a version of initiative that we enjoyed more definitely, but it still had the like same limitations. And even though the tracking was a little bit easier, it was still it required some tracking, and it was not. I would say it was not a like narrative forward as we wanted, like because we could find a lot of edge cases where we say like, ah, but this is not fair. Like this, character could do something at that moment, and he's just not that phase. And um we then considered like he just came and said like, listen, I tried again, we had that situation, and we have a huge problem, we have to do something about the initiative. And then we try to figure that out, and at some point we just said, okay, like maybe this is the reason why nobody had better option for initiative, because they all tried and ended up where we are now. But we still struggled a little bit, and at some point he had his eureka moment, like when he was like, but we can use something that we have already seen. And want to take over?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I would just want to add that for us, why we said it's not fair is because when you have so little HP and you're in the modern world where everyone has firearms, for example, if you're gonna get like killed in the game, your character is done. You need to have that as a feasible thing narratively. Everyone will say, okay, but this is not fair. I couldn't react. That is like it needs to feel like it was your fault. Otherwise,
yeah, that's also true. Like it really didn't fit our system as well, because of like third phase would always be such a huge risk. Like you're gambling with your life because you don't know what's going to happen till phase 3.
And in Crown and Skull, you still have not that much HP at the beginning, and it's still dangerous, and you don't have reactions. I think you only have one action. But the thing is, if you play first, you don't have that much of an advantage because everyone else is going to play afterwards. If you play first in our game, for example, if all players play in the first phase and they have firearms, well, no human on the other side will survive that initial attack. So it's very deadly when you are the one and that is initiating things. And I think it goes other way around as well. So what we came up with, what was the eureka moment, was what if we structure it like a action movie? Like if you see the scenes in an action movie, you can see like, okay, there is the good guys and the bad guys, and sometimes there is someone else, like a neutral faction. But how the camera progresses is you have like bam bam bam, a couple of things happen, then I don't know, the bad guy smashes a chair on the hero's head, then the scene changes to maybe another person from the good guys faction, and then you see them running away or doing something, and then as soon as something meaningful happens, the scene changes again. Those things are happening at the same time. While you are getting hit with a chair, your friends are trying to survive. They're just not the focus because nothing interesting is happening at that point. And we wanted to simulate this. I think that's when we came up with, okay, so the action that you take should be something that says if you're going to continue playing or your enemy is going to take over. So the action you make will decide who plays next. And I know Rich told me that Daggerheart, I haven't read it or played it yet, but Rich told me that Daggerheart has a similar thing. Um, but we really wanted to focus on, okay, what happens if you have, that might be just my programmer brain talking, but what if you have infinite amounts of actions? We want to cover all of that. We want it to be always dynamic, and we wanted it to be, well, not that predictable, because when you know you're fourth in initiative, you can say, okay, maybe for the next 15 minutes I won't do anything. So you might be tempted to take your phone or check something or think about your, like, you get like phased out of the whole thing. And we want to create a system where you never know if it's going to be your turn. You're still waiting, you still have time to plant things, but you don't know how much you're going to wait.
But the actions happening before your, potential action is gonna, determine if you're gonna play after that or not. And then also, the result of that action can change the context. So maybe even if you thought, you're gonna do something after the action, you decide not to because it is not needed anymore. So you kind of have to be like, present, and this I mean, I don't want to call it initiative anymore, but this new system really helped us do that with our players. Like they all feel like, you know m- more like more into the game. Like they're not even they. I don't think they are thinking that much about their next step that much in advance, and I don't feel like that's a problem with strategizing either, which I thought it might be, because now you don't have like time to strategize that much because you don't know what's gonna happen before you. But it's actually good because you have to come up with the idea quickly, and people do still strategize just on the spot.
Yeah, you see there, DM with the day job says poker initiative system. Yeah, that would be interesting. I saw that some games, for example, Savage Worlds has the cards has the initiative thing, and some cards, I think aces are like put you on top or give you some benefit. I know there is also games like Night Watch that is coming out. Also has, oh, I think I have the cards somewhere here. Wait. Yeah, these are like fate cards, and you have a number of, like, I don't know if you can see that. You have a number saying like when you play, and it has some fortunate effect for the players and an unfortunate effect that the GM can execute if the card is theirs. So there are games that use cards, but poker and like polling and all that, that is pretty interesting. That there's an idea for a video. I would love to see that. But yeah, I think we should give like a 30 seconds explanation of what we came up with, so that we can be on the same
But
page.
I would just mention like how big of a change was just the implementation of camera. Like imagine like, the camera really like changed the concept, like the way we perceive combat. generally it helped me imagine it, because when we asked ourselves, like, do we even imagine combat generally, like it's happening, simultaneously? I mean, most of the times I don't even think about it, and then when I do, I mean, it's a convention. I know it's happening simultaneously, but I cannot guarantee I'm imagining it that
Yeah, I
way.
think we asked this question to a lot of people, and I don't know if anyone actually gets to imagine everything that happens in a round happening at the same time. That's why I do like a 10-second recap after
Mm,
every round in like normal initiative to like paint the picture of how it all looked. But I think I met people that don't really think about the camera as camera that much. But for us, it made sense and it feels natural because we are all very accustomed to seeing a camera in games, in movies. Like we know to like suppress our disbelief and just enjoy the camera. And sometimes it is very immersion breaking for some players, but for us, yeah, it works for us. I don't know, especially if you're the GM in the system, when you know that you want someone to have more or less screen time. That is something that I really want to talk about, but we need to define the terms
definitely.
first. So yeah, how how this works. So each group of participants that are aligned with their goals, that consider themselves allies, can be grouped in a faction. We have, as we said, a number of factions, and there is a way that we determine the order of factions. So usually the one that acts first, the one that narratively jumps into the conflict first, is called the initiator, and the faction that the initiator is from plays first. The faction that they interact with is pulled into the conflict, so they act second. And we use this to, well, pretty much order everyone in the order that they were either entering the scene or were pulled into the conflict. Of course, there is a way of someone is just a one faction person. That is someone that is a loner, someone who is not recognized as an ally of anyone. And I wouldn't go into that just yet. But now you have factions, you have the order in which factions play. So what can I do inside my faction as a character? Well, I can do what is called an instinct. Instincts are pretty much things that don't impact the order of play. So if you're dying and you want to get stable, you can roll for that, and it's just an instinct. If you want to move or like just use your regular movement, that is also an instinct. Those types of things. Maybe also free actions, for example, would be instincts. But at some point, if anyone from your faction wants to do something that's meaningful, that takes some time, something that we would call a regular action in other games, that's called a commitment. And the commitment is the die roll that determines if another person from your faction will act or if the next faction in the faction order will act. And that's pretty much the gist of it. You can now probably find a lot of edge cases where you can ask, well, what happens if you have, I don't know, more people in one faction, less people in the other? How does that impact action economy, for example? Well, as an instinct, you can sacrifice your commitment. Like, say, I don't want to be involved in committing to anything in this round, but I want to boost the person that wants to commit, or I want to move more, like have double movement. Basically, you're sacrificing your ability to commit for some other boost. Um, Now, the question is, how do people inside the faction know who plays next? Well, as with the initiative that we used in Pathfinder, for example, where our side plays first, you just make a deal and then act. We didn't want to say, okay, this is the order in which people in a faction need to play. So we said, okay, make a deal. Who is gonna commit? Sometimes this sparks debate. Sometimes the GM must jump in and say, okay, uh, here is a timer or something. You have to like cut the discussion. But it's not boring when people are discussing what to do. They are in a way like the characters. I love this explanation. I heard it somewhere online, but the players and the characters have this dissonance where the characters have lived in this world for a long, long time, and they have some expectations, they know some things about the world, or if they've been combat trained, it's their whole reality, it's their life. But on the other hand, um, you as a player have never experienced these things, maybe. So it's natural for you to have time to make a deal with your allies, even though it takes time and it's not in the game time, if that makes sense. So I would let people say, okay, I'm in big trouble, I have to fight back, can I commit? And usually it doesn't take that long. But for some GMs, I can totally see them just going, okay, I prioritize the person that hasn't played yet. So if you have someone that is just like sitting and not committing any round, they can still do a bunch of instincts every time it's your factions. We call it momentum when your faction is playing. So if it's your faction's momentum, you can do a lot of instincts, a lot of stuff, but you can't commit unless you make a deal with your friends. I don't know if I give it justice, but
That, and I mean, also we should mention that you can also, like sacrifice your commit for,
yeah,
aiding.
yeah. So, for example, if the two of us are in one faction and we need to, I don't know, we have two enemies and we want to just attack them. I might say, okay, I don't want to attack now because attacking would be a commitment. I will actually not be able to commit at all, and I pass the torch to you so you can shoot, but I will boost your shooting skill. And there is a way, I don't want to go into it.
But it's
Now,
a really cool thing, like
yeah,
how
yeah,
it
yeah.
works. I'm proud of that part.
But I can boost him shooting. Now, the limit, you might say, okay, but maybe then you end up with one faction getting the commitment going infinitely. Well, the cap is the number of players inside your faction. So if I sacrifice my commitment and he shoots, regardless of his success, the next faction goes next. Because, yeah, if I hadn't sacrificed my commitment, then his success would allow me to also have a commitment. That is,
But it's like, it's also cool because it adds to the decision making, and sometimes you think like, okay, for us it's more important that at least one action succeeds this round than, for then the possibility that we, might both play in this round. So, you know one more thing, to think about, and also one more way to like include like pulling other people to, commit and do some action, because sometimes, there was a problem that like some characters are not so like combat oriented, let's say, and they feel like, useless in a combat, which is, not the case. They still have a lot of things to do, but if they are new to the system, they might feel like, they don't have plenty of options, like the regular like
people with sense, right? Sense is like perception. It involves everything that is tied to perception and more, like also internal stuff. But people with sense, they can be crucial on the battlefield if they are watching from a distance and they say, okay, let me do this commitment. Maybe I find out more about the enemy. And this is a cool way to distinguish between instincts and commitments, because just rolling your sense to see if a guy in front of you is armed,
it's an instinct.
it's an instinct. You just have to like scan.
You don't have to do it consciously at all. Like,
Yeah.
you're like,
But you like taking a step back and analyzing the battlefield, committing, risking the momentum of the whole party just to see if you can have a tactical advantage, really could give you a tactical advantage. Succeeding on that, I would, as GM, provide some useful information like, oh, you haven't seen like two snipers that are hidden, or you notice that all of the bad guys have a certain glowing thing in their pocket or something. Like, I would provide an advantage there. So commitment is there to, in a way, give everyone, regardless of how diverse their builds are, something that they can impact the playing field.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that is the gist of it. Let me see if we wrote some questions just for us as reminders. Okay, yeah. If we have who plays first, if there is no regular
When
initiative.
it's not narratively clear, like who's the
Yeah, if it's
initiator.
not narratively clear, we have a standoff. It's basically just rolling your skills and comparing the results. Who gets the smaller result plays first. It's called a standoff. And we do have surprise attacks. That if you're like going for a stealthy approach, you can attack someone. If you don't fumble, this is very similar to Call Cthulhu. If you don't fumble, you're probably gonna incapacitate the person. So that is one thing. Yeah, distance. Well, we went for like just distance levels approach, like in ICRPG, for example. But there is no need for us to have a grid. A lot of these battles can even be done in your head, and the distance is pretty much measured from like how far you can go in one round. So you have like close, that means something is in your melee range. You have near, that is something that you can reach by just doing an instinct, just walking there. You have fire, which is something that you can affect with a bunch of firearms, but you can't do melee there.
And you have to commit like
You
full
have
move
to,
to get there.
well, you have to sacrifice your commitment
Yeah.
to do the. So you say, I won't be committing this time, but I will move double my movement rate. And then we have very far. Everything beyond very far is outside the zone of conflict. And yeah, weapons define which range they affect. So that's all pretty simple. Mm, yeah, this is interesting. We can talk about barging in. So you want to talk about it? Or
I mean, we started talking about it as a problem, as an edge case, I think, right? And you're like, what if, somebody is not a part of the faction yet? I mean, he narratively is in the same group, but he's not like engaged in the combat yet. He might be in another room when the combat started, or yeah, or he could like intentionally, be hidden and like waiting for his moment. And then what happens when he wants to like jump into the action? And then we came up with like barging in, and I think it works pretty well. And it's funny that we like until then we played, we tried combat and it worked well, and until that moment nobody had noticed that we are kind of missing this part. But it really added so much to strategy, because now you can strategize about the moment when you want to jump in, because once you are doing like barging in, you are kind of like getting an action when
you're
your
getting an
faction
extraction, yeah.
wouldn't have it, even though that like you're just jumping in. If you're jumping into the like uh enemies action, you can play. I mean, they can continue their momentum if they have all the conditions to continue the momentum. If the previous action was successful, they can like still play, but you can really use that moment to do something important, because you have right to like intercept, which is really
So the
cool.
rule is basically, if you are not, if the faction is not aware of your existence, you can at any point jump in, barge in, and if the enemy hasn't rolled dice or changed something, like you can't do it in the middle of someone's turn if they already rolled the dice. If not, you can intercept, and then you can have your action. Now your everyone involved sees if your which faction will take you as their person. If no faction wants you, well, you're left alone or you're one man faction. And if, for example, in the case of players where one player is hiding, you would join your players, and then you can also play when your faction's momentum arises. So you got an extra action. Now we had so many ideas with this. What if that moves your faction's turn in the faction turn order to this place where you barged in, and then you can like continue the momentum of your faction. Oh my god, that caused so many problems.
Yeah.
And um, we found situations where it was very chaotic. So we just said no. When you barge in, you have your action. Then you're a part of the faction. And now it's clean. I think we are cool with this. And still,
nice advantage.
Yeah, it's still nice advantage, especially if you have like multiple people hiding.
Yeah.
I think you could argue, well, after the second person that comes out of cover, the enemies would be more alert. But I always say, in a scenario where everyone has so little HP, any advantage is good advantage. Mm, but yeah, barging in was fun, and it was one of those situations when you're like, kill your darlings. We had so many rules about barging in. We had so many cool ideas of like how to balance things and everything. What do we have here?
We went through that. I'm not sure if I'm ready to talk about dying yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we can talk about. Oh, I would just mention, there is a part of the book where we say, okay, the GM can change how big the factions are, who is in which faction, to like take care of how much screen time each like sub faction has. So good example of this is your players and you have two hirelings or two, I don't know, allied NPCs, right? And oh, sorry, just a sec. Um, is writing good stuff. So let me just finish this and I will answer your question. So if you have two allied NPCs and they are with the players, it would make sense to put them in the same faction. Then you will never momentum or not. It's not fun. Your dumb NPC that you're escorting to somewhere commits, and now your faction lost the momentum. Or you can say, okay, the NPCs play last, but then they will have no screen time, which is fine. Like sometimes you have followers that you don't want to have any screen time. Like they're just there, and they might be hiding or something in the conflict. So okay, like whatever. You put them in that faction. But if you want more screen time for them, it is a cool way that the GM can just sever that faction to two factions. So you have the players, you have the NPCs, and then you have the enemies. In this way, you say, okay, the NPCs are maybe more important. Every time they will also be doing something. They are allied factions, but they get their own screen time. And this can be done with enemies as well. So you can have, if you want to make things harder for the players, you can have enemies that are in one faction be melee, like regular enemies, and you can have minions that are like one hit killable things, maybe some bugs or whatever, little drones or whatever. You can have those as their own faction. Now you're saying, okay, this minion thing or an environmental thing. You can also say like, you know how in D&D you can sometimes assign initiative to environment, like as layer like lava spewing out of the ground or something every time that initiative order comes. You can do the same thing here. So factions just allow you to have screen time for everyone. And with this, you can come to a conclusion. Well, do we then have a system that, when pushed to its limits, is actually the regular initiative from D&D? Because if everyone is just a one-man faction, you order those in a arbitrary order and they play, you're pretty much getting the same thing as in D&D.
But we didn't give players the freedom to choose the faction that way. Like it's just it's a tool for GM to organize the combat the way he wants.
Yeah.
And most of the time you will have two factions, and adding more faction is just usually your need. Like you feel like one more faction would add to the action, to the combat.
Now, our mod asked if, and by the way, our mod is freaking amazing. He jumped in on a very short notice for this stream and is really playtesting this, really involved into making this.
Not just that, I think we should also mention the guy is like jamming as crazy and playtesting the game, and the system is the first and only like system that he jammed.
Yeah. This is so like having someone start jamming because of like experiencing the system is pretty cool.
And that was our like primary goal. Like when we started, we said like we wanted a game that could be friendly for like new GMs to just join the hobby. And I mean, he's a very special guy, so I wouldn't say like he's a good example that he's a proof that we achieved that, but he's closest to proof we have now.
Yeah, close. Our patient zero.
Yeah.
But anyways, he ran a session for us, and one question was asked, and that is, how does movement function if you have something that's in your way? So we don't have attacks of opportunity. I think attacks of opportunity are a very cool idea, but they usually result in people being afraid to move or having to use like full withdrawal. And I'm not a really big fan, but I don't hate it. I really think something like that should exist. So we said that, okay, you can move as an instinct unless you have something that's in your way. And if we take the scenario from that module, I think there was like church, and there was a eldritch infused girl at the door trying to prohibit anyone from getting in. And she's buffed. She had like maximum strength or something, and like crazy stats. It's not. It's a supernatural being, right? So one of the players wanted to just run past her and go into the church. And as we don't have attacks of opportunity, it was rules that you just succeed. You just go next to her. But I think these scenarios, and this is something we added into the book as well, these scenarios are the same as if you have a cliff in front of you. So if you have a cliff, you would use a commitment to jump over to do something about it. If you fail, you might fall in, or you might be just in front of the cliff. Stay there. Probably fall in, just hang. So I think for the situation where with this buff girl and you trying to run past, maybe you say, I want to slide down, and you're rolling your move uh, skill. If you succeed, great, you're in the church doing your thing. If you fail, well, if someone has supernaturally big strength and you fail to get past them and you're just in front of them, and now you have even lost your faction's momentum, I mean,
But for us, really, it worked because if you succeeded, it doesn't matter. Like you did it, your skill or whatever that was, luck, void, or you did it. So that it is not important. You don't trigger it. But in cases like where you don't, you will immediately have a opportunity attack because your momentum will end because you just did commitment. So I think it kind of compensated for attack of opportunity, and I do think we needed it. We didn't need it in the way we used it before.
Pretty cool stuff. I'm actually very hyped for this combat system because I really feel like it took away all my gripes with classic initiative for these types of games. I don't know if I would even dare to use it in like D&D or Pathfinder. To be honest, like I don't think it is for that type of game without heavy modifications. But we could. I mean, I was running Index Card RPG using this, so each D20 roll was, determining that if your momentum continues. Challenge accepted. I would love to see that for other games because, as I said, it's really like how would you handle all those like specific balance things around reactions and uh, Pathfinder 2 with multiple actions and like it's hard. I would say it's hard. And spellcasting. Spellcasting is something that I think can turn this to on its head because we don't have magic in our system.
But we should be straight here. Like we thought about it, we didn't need it, but we still wanted to like have an open space for adding it if at some point if we needed, because we wanted our core to stay the core and unchanged, no matter of the setting and the context. Like if it's maybe like a high fantasy thing, I still think it's doable. It just needs some home brewing, and you should be like really familiar with the core.
We are not going into it because of scope creep. We talked about it. Lazar was like, oh, if we change some aspects or some skills and then we add some magic, and we also thought like to swap out void for, I don't know, magic and have roll to cast system, but how much can you play with momentum and all that with spells? Like some spells might not affect momentum. Like imagine a powerful spell being an instinct. That's crazy, crazy destructive. You know,
No, I mean the biggest problem here is we don't have leveling.
we don't have level.
Yeah, no, that's why it would be sick. But
we
like
do have progression, some form
we do
of
have
slight
progression that fits, our setting definitely, but we don't have a classical leveling.
I mean,
So
in terms of setting, for those who don't know, we are running RedMark in 2055. That is the year like slight future, and it's like it's not cyberpunk. It's like yeah, and just added some technological advancements, and the place where it all happens is not the primary source of like horror. It's not like a dystopian city or anything like that. It's a normal place. But where the horror comes from is from these like what is underneath that facade. Uh, we have void as a concept that deserves stream of its own, really. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think we can cover it here, but there are void touched people, places, and like things in general. For example, all those like liminal spaces, for example. The feeling that you get from liminal spaces is something that I would say like we would call that a void touched place. And they are not always
most of the time
most
of the time they just use it as an instinct. They don't have
Yes.
clue how a bit crazy as well, because interaction with the unknown forces kind of change. I would say
the closest counter.
them they're just really like experienced.
So it's not a bad thing, but we wanted to keep it on the edge. Never go. We don't want to have just moody horror. We want like the mundane things of living in a world combined with horror aspects, combined with action. So we want all of those to exist in a campaign. And I think that is where narratively you get the most satisfaction. And I always ask my players to have some bonds in the world, and we try to role play those bonds so that you get attached to the world. And then we play around with super bordering supernatural. It's a very fine place. It's hard to pin down, and that was our even the definition of void. It's so hard to like we know intuitively what we're talking about, but it's so hard to pin down. And then we figured out that we're probably gonna have multiple interpretations of void, and then the
We
GM choosing
even
one.
sorry for interrupting, but we even came to a conclusion that the interpretation of void is just something that kind of defines the setting, so that
I don't know what this means.
mod, are we still live? We good?
What is happening?
Yeah, it's wait.
We good? I don't know if this yes is yes for that. We would liminal space and then 1 minute nothing happened. We still have an error on the screen, so I don't know. Well, pretty much we went into a digression about void, but overall the feeling that liminal spaces give is seems like here cool. I don't know how much you heard, but yeah. Void is basically something that is like Cthulhu Mythos, but less paranormal, and I think
It is less strict also. It's
less
just
strict,
like
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this is a like right moment to talk about like how we came up to with void and all.
No, I think that's a stream for itself.
Yeah.
That's because even choosing the definition of void, that we're gonna have multiple interpretations of void. So even choosing which interpretation you're gonna take as the one you really enjoy as the GM is something that will also define the genre of RedMark. So yeah, it's a deep topic. But how did we end up here with magic and
void? It just pulls you toward.
Void just pulls you towards. I don't know. Lost the train of thought. But yeah, super cool stuff. I'm very excited. I think Now, we want to do this is something that we really debated a lot. We want to do a prototype of the book, like the initiation into RedMark. So just so we can see, like people can like see how it all works. It's more than a startup guide. It's if we say a quick start would be a demo, this could be an MVP, like minimal viable prototype that we will go through the whole yellow ink. So we wanted to have a book that is pretty much everything that we would have in the book, but like shrunken down into like I wouldn't call it a bite-sized version, but a version that is so it gives you everything you need to play it and more. And then we would have a free version of that, and we want to do one that is with complete art and page and stuff and everything, like completely done. So we can go through the whole process sooner rather than later, see what it takes for us to get this book out there. And yeah, I think we are very close to that. The player guide is completely done. Some parts of the chain guide are done. Running monsters and tips on making NPCs are done. We have an adventure that is now in the works. We have pre-gens, a lot of pre-gens. Everyone said they want a lot of pre-gens. So pre-gens are happening in a very cool way, I must say. And yeah, after that, we are waiting for the art, and I think we can start doing page layouts, and I think we will actually be able to pull this off before Essen
Yeah.
of this year. I don't know what it takes for us to try and apply to have like a place in Essen. We'll have to ask sponsor from
If you guys know, please.
Yeah, if someone knows how you get applied for Essen Spiel in Germany, that would be cool to have our game prototype there. Honestly, I thought we were gonna finish the whole book in like 3 months. That was so. I had no idea what it means to make a book. Oh my god, I'm still.
But still, like even now, even now we definitely are aware of the fact it's seems like it's happening pretty fast. To be honest, like progress is very like visible. So yeah, I think you can do the like
It is an ambitious project, but that's why we want to do the prototype. Prototype seems very doable because we're gonna have an intro, we're gonna have just stripped down rules, then some like pre-gens, an adventure, and that's pretty much it. We're gonna skip the whole GM guide, and I think there's gonna be a lot of juicy things in the GM guide. So seems doable, and we are already like we've started talking to our artists months ago, so we're already deep in that process of getting art and nailing down that feel of the book. So ambitious, probably doable, not so doable in it's gonna be like on and off working, but I think the prototype can
I think like yeah, maybe just we'll like some art, maybe like not the amount that we would like for the finished project, but probably enough for the
free prototype is just the text.
So yeah, I'm talking about the real one.
So yeah, we're just over an hour. I think we have been.
We keep dying, we still owe people, some
something for content on the channel.
There's way to die. There's way to die. I'm just gonna say that.
There's a lot of way to die.
And there's also a way to, live miserably. That thing we didn't also cover, like injuries and conditions. But yeah,
how Cult says that is only the beginning. They show you that picture with
oh yeah, the one you talked about.
I'll have to fiddle around with the mic a bit. Yeah, when you look at when you squish the book like this, which can be healthy for the book, it says that is only the beginning here. This is probably not a register on camera. No,
I mean,
barely.
I can see that there are some letters, but that's about it.
But yeah, that is not the beginning in our game. That is pretty much death. There's no coming back, or no eternal hell like sports playtests. probably in like next 2 months on Discord. We're also going to, I don't know, my release schedule is gonna change probably because I can't juggle everything. I have to start looking for a job. That time came 6 months ago, 7 months ago. I made a video, like a heartbreaking video about me quitting my job and quitting IT and everything, and daydreaming what I will accomplish. And I'm pretty like, this is more than I anticipated. I said like, will I don't know, make a campaign to end all campaigns. RedMark, just way better. Yeah, but I have to start looking for a job and doing all that. So the release schedule is gonna change. I can't say anything about it yet, and because I don't know honestly. But if you want to chat, hang out, just talk, design stuff, or whatever, I will do more live streams because this is much easier to do and set up. And I will probably, like, I will get rid of the static. I'm getting messages that you still hear it. Fortunately, sorry about that, but technical difficulties. Um, I will do more live streams and I will be on Discord. I lurk on Discord a lot now, so yeah, join us. Come to our channel. Shoot me a link for your channel. Just DM me and we can chat. We can talk. Even collaborate if someone is up for that. Yeah, I don't know if I would say anything else. Our friend is gonna come any minute up to have a session 0, so I would. Yeah, she's on her way. I don't know. I will cut it here. Why not? Thank you everyone for taking time to come and join us. I know this is not ideal time for a lot of time zones, but hey, we sat down and the stream just happened. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well, off we go. Bye bye.